Caleb Rivers, the scholarship student I've been funding for years, had a habit of being incredibly generous with my money. After my fiancée, Serena Vance, fell in love with him, he introduced me to a street-tough punk girl named Roxy Slate, calling it compensation. At that moment, amidst a splitting headache, a flood of fragmented memories rushed into my mind. I realized with a jolt that I was living inside a protagonist-centered novel. Caleb was the chosen one, the hero, and I was merely the wealthy tool designed to pave his way. My official pairing was supposed to be Roxy. For her, I was destined to betray my family, become a house husband, and spend the rest of my life changing diapers and warming bottles. Looking at the dried blood under Roxy's fingernails in my vision, I laughed. It was time to rewrite this script. On the day Caleb was elected Young Person of the Year, I drove my car into a guardrail. The airbag slammed into my face, and the screech of twisting metal filled my ears. In the passenger seat, my roommate Toby Miller scoffed. "Julian, Caleb's win is what everyone wanted. Who are you trying to impress with this pity party? Caleb treats you like a brother, and you just can't stand seeing him succeed, can you?" The contempt in his voice was palpable. When Toby's mother fell ill, Caleb had advanced the massive medical fees. Since then, Toby had become Caleb's #1 hype man and inexplicably despised me. For this award, Caleb and I were the top contenders. But Caleb was known for his philanthropy, using my authorized user credit card to pay tuition for poor students, covering damages for delivery drivers who hit luxury cars, and donating supplies to orphanages. With that halo over his head, he crushed me in the vote and secured an internship ticket to a top-tier investment bank. Toby's accusation made me instinctively want to defend myself. But before I could speak, my brain throbbed as if an invisible iron hammer had struck my skull. Through the pain, those plot fragments branded themselves clearly into my mind. Under the agony, my thoughts became strangely clear. Why should I explain? Toby was already biased. Anything I said would sound like an excuse. Caleb arrived, dressed simply in a white t-shirt and jeans. He ran over with genuine anxiety on his face, sweat beading on his forehead. His acting was impeccable. "Julian," he grabbed my arm firmly, with unquestionable concern. "Is this because I took the spot? If you're unhappy, I'll go to the committee and withdraw right now. Don't joke with your safety." His words were thick with self-blame and a sense of sacrifice. Toby's glare turned even colder, as if I were some unforgivable criminal. The familiar pain struck again, but this time, it felt like a veil was being torn from my mind. Caleb's words, they sounded wrong. On the surface, he took all the blame, but every syllable hinted that I was petty and a sore loser. I had always treated him like a brother. He was a scholarship student sponsored by the Thorne family, raised in my home, eating and dressing just like me. I even gave him a credit card with no limit. I thought the Thorne family had given him enough confidence and a sense of belonging. This time, I didn't immediately soothe his grievance as I had in the past. Instead, I stared calmly into his eyes, my voice flat. "Caleb, why would you think that?" Caleb's body stiffened imperceptibly, seemingly surprised by my reaction. His Adam's apple bobbed, and his eyes instantly dimmed. "It's my fault. I said the wrong thing and upset you again." His voice was low, laced with a deliberate, raspy hurt. Toby immediately shoved me. "Julian Thorne, are you done yet? Do you have to bully him like this?" "Bully?" I shook off his hand, my eyes turning completely cold. "When have I ever bullied him? Be specific." Toby craned his neck. "Stop playing dumb. Caleb is kind-hearted. He covers for you everywhere. If he didn't stop me, I would have exposed your hypocritical, cold-blooded rich kid face to everyone long ago." "Oh, and what face is that?" I stepped closer, imposing and oppressive. Toby opened his mouth to yell, but Caleb yanked him aside, whispering something urgent and pleading into his ear. Toby glared at me one last time and stormed off. Watching Toby's retreating back, I rubbed my throbbing temples and turned my gaze to Caleb, my voice laced with ice. "Caleb, shouldn't you explain something to me?" Toby's hostility obviously stemmed from Caleb. Caleb clenched his fists, knuckles turning white, his eyes quickly filling with innocence and hurt. "Toby, he has a quick temper and speaks without thinking. He definitely didn't mean to misunderstand you. I'll talk to him later." Deflecting the issue, my heart sank, and I cut straight to the point. "Then why didn't you tell him that I was the one who paid for his mother's surgery? That card you used to advance the money draws from the Thorne family account." Caleb looked up sharply. The grievance receded like the tide, replaced by a righteous frankness, even carrying a hint of blame for my pettiness. "Julian, why are you asking this?" He frowned, his tone puzzled and slightly hard. "Don't you always say that charity shouldn't seek reward? I asked of the temple. Doing good without seeking fame brings the deepest blessings. I took on that empty fame for you, bearing the potential bad karma. You don't thank me, fine, but why are you blaming me? Me? In the past, I would have been twisted into knots by Caleb's logic. As long as he showed a bit of innocence and fragility, I would unconditionally back down. But after the crash, the incoming plot was like a cold, bright light, leaving him nowhere to hide. I re-examined him, seeing only the hypocrisy beneath that sunny, handsome face. Taking credit for my payments is called bearing bad karma for me. The Young Person of the Year, honor, the opportunity at a top investment bank. These are bad karma? Before I could speak again, Caleb had seamlessly switched to a relaxed smile, clapping my shoulder heavily. Julian, you're acting weird today. Did the crash scramble your brain? He pushed me forward without allowing protest. Come on. I'm taking you to meet someone. I told you I'd introduce my most important family to you. Consider it my surprise for you. Caleb pushed me back into the Thorne family villa. As soon as we entered, the strong smell of cigarettes and cheap perfume made me frown. The living room was a smoky mess, crowded with a dozen strangers, tattoos, nose rings, exaggerated hair colors, and eyes full of insolence. Through the smoke, seeing Caleb, they greeted him with grins. Caleb's back? Roxy's been waiting for you for ages. Caleb wore that humble, sunny smile, high-fiving them one by one, his movements practiced as if rehearsed 1,000 times. Then, he pushed me toward the girl sitting in the center of the sofa. Roxy Slate. Short, fiery red hair like a burning chemical fire, a black leather jacket hanging open to reveal a tight tank top, ripped jeans hanging low on her hips, an unlit cigarette dangling from her mouth. She had her legs crossed, shaking her foot rhythmically, her eyes hooked on me, assessing me like goods with brazen pickiness. Right, exactly the wild, untamed type I liked in my ignorant youth. A manic pixie dream girl with a switchblade? No, the script of fate told me this was a massive trap. I sneered silently in my heart. Caleb winked at her, showing off a bit. Roxy, this is my best brother, Julian Thorne. How about it, handsome enough? I told you about him, the crown prince of the Thorne family. Roxy scoffed, taking the cigarette down and holding it between her fingers. Her gaze remained locked on my face, but she spoke to Caleb. Handsome, he's all right, but in my book, you'll always be number one, kid. TCH, Roxy, you're just tough talking. You definitely think Julian is more handsome than me. Caleb bumped her shoulder in mock dissatisfaction, the action intimate and natural, displaying a chemistry no outsider could penetrate. Roxy laughed and exchanged a few more words with him before her gaze finally fell on me, as if granting charity. Her eyes held undisguised interest, like she'd found new prey. A blonde guy with a lip piercing next to her immediately started jeering. Roxy, the gift. Show the new brother-in-law the gift. Roxy picked it herself, ran around half the day. If Roxy wants something done, it gets done. Roxy laughingly kicked the blonde guy. Get lost. Don't scare him. Though she said that, her face was full of controlling pride. She stood up. She wasn't tall, but that reckless, thug-like vibe gave her a strong presence. From a paper bag printed with a skull, she pulled out a crudely packaged box and threw it onto the coffee table in front of me with a casual smack. Here, she lifted her chin, her tone condescendingly charitable. Caleb says a rich kid like you doesn't lack anything, just lacks something grounded. I assembled it myself. A limited edition, heavy motorcycle model. She tapped the box with a fingernail stained with unknown grime. Those sports car models of yours, compared to this real machine that can run and be modified, are just children's toys, right? The moment I saw that rough packaging, the forced plot in my mind overlapped instantly with reality. Those cold images of my official match, Roxy, and my future life as a stay-at-home dad pierced my nerves like high-voltage current. My stomach churned. I clenched my fists tightly, pinching my thigh hard, using the sharp pain to suppress the trembling of my body and the rising nausea. I picked up my phone, subtly pressed a shortcut key, and spoke extremely fast into the receiver. Thorne residence. Living room. Armed intrusion. Send units immediately. Then, I let out a breath. Roxy was annoyed by my dodging motion, but for Caleb's sake, she just huffed. Caleb said you have a good temper and know how to treat people, that you aren't just a rich kid who shows off. Looking at you, you're nothing special. The thugs hooted again. Caleb sighed theatrically, draping his arm naturally over Roxy's shoulder. Julian, if you weren't my best brother, I wouldn't bear to give Roxy up to you, even if you beat me to death. His tone carried exaggerated reluctance and a nauseating sense of painful sacrifice. Roxy hugged Caleb back around the waist and patted him firmly. Silly boy, even if I get married later, the one I care about most is still you. Her words and actions clearly defined Caleb's unshakable position in her heart. After saying that, she looked at me again with a sense of bestowing a favor, nodding at the model on the table. What are you staring at? Open it. If you like it, later. She dragged out the word, her eyes holding a lewd implication. It's not impossible to get you some other good stuff. Those words, good stuff, were bitten out with ambiguous danger. Images flashed through my mind. Me in an apron, being ordered around in the plot. The churning in my stomach could no longer be suppressed. I laughed in anger, grabbed the crude model box from the coffee table, swung my arm in a wide arc, and with the fury of 2 lifetimes, smashed it violently against the wall above Roxy's head. Crash! The cheap plastic model box shattered instantly. Metal parts and shards exploded outward, mixing with the debris of the packaging, plastering Roxy's face and head. Roxy! Caleb shouted in shock and anger. FCK! The thugs exploded instantly, grabbing bottles and weapons. Several shiny daggers and brass knuckles appeared, their ferocious gazes stabbing into me like knives. Roxy was stunned by the impact. A few seconds later, she reacted. She wiped the debris from her face. The sharp plastic edge had cut a small gash on her forehead, oozing blood. Her eyes were dark enough to drip water as she stared at me, enunciating every word. All right, Prince Julian, you look down on my gift? Doing this the hard way, huh? Julian, are you crazy? Caleb roared at me while frantically wiping Roxy's face. Even if you think the gift isn't high-class enough, you didn't have to get violent. Roxy picked this specifically for you. You're so ungrateful. A thug with dyed green hair and a bleeding dagger tattoo on his arm pulled out a butterfly knife directly. Click-clack. He flipped it open, the blade pointing coldly at me as he sneered. Calling you Brother Julian is giving you face. Acting wild on Caleb's turf? You have a death wish. I raised an eyebrow and looked at the ashen-faced Caleb. His turf. Caleb's eyes flickered. He lowered his voice, speaking rapidly with a mix of coaxing and threat. Julian, if you just nod now and admit this is my place, I promise to plead with Roxy for you. Get her to forgive you this one time. Otherwise, he glanced at Roxy and the menacing group behind her, implication clear. To the outside world, Caleb had always positioned himself as the Thorne family's adopted son, making a name for himself in the circle. But public opinion always praised him and stepped on me. He was charitable and sunny. I was painted as a cold, selfish, bullying second-generation rich kid. Before, I thought the truth would speak for itself and couldn't be bothered to explain, mostly afraid of hurting Caleb's pitiful pride. Now that I think about it, I was a damn sucker being bled dry. Caleb was a hypocrite generous with other people's money, and I was the fool being drained while thanking him for it. I let out a scoff, my voice cutting clearly through the suddenly quiet living room. Your turf? Take out the deed. Let's see if it says Arthur Thorne or Caleb Rivers. You stayed in a guest room on my floor for a few years and actually started thinking you were the master. Caleb, having his mask torn off in public, flushed red, then purple. His eyes held disbelief, humiliation, and an erupting resentment. His lips trembled as if he had suffered a massive injustice. You hate me that much? Hate that Serena chose me? His voice trembled, sounding like he was crying. But who can control feelings? If I could, I'd rather give Serena back to you. Do you know how much resolve it took for me to try and give Roxy to you as compensation? What exactly do I have to do for you to forgive me? He skillfully shifted the focus, painting himself as a tragic character sacrificing for his brother. Before I could speak, Roxy had already pulled Caleb behind her to protect him, staring at me viciously like an enraged she-wolf. Julian Thorne, you're looking to die. The thugs were roused to anger, cursing as they closed in. At Roxy's signal, the green-haired thug with the butterfly knife approached with a sinister grin, the tip almost poking my nose. Thorne, if you know what's good for you, kneel and kowed out to Caleb and Roxy. Otherwise, I know who you are, but the knife in my hand doesn't. In that split second, I caught a glimpse of flashing red and blue lights outside the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. The piercing siren tore through the room's noise, just as everyone was stunned by the sound. I spun around abruptly and sprinted toward the foyer. Police! Freeze! The front door was rammed open, and heavily armed officers poured in. We received a report of armed intrusion and assault. Everyone, hands on your heads. Get down. The green-haired guy who was just waving his knife trembled, dropping the butterfly knife with a clatter. He immediately squatted and held his head as if his bones had been removed. Roxy reacted the fastest, squeezing out a stiff smile. Officer, it's a misunderstanding. We're all friends, just joking around. She tried to hide the brass knuckles behind her back. Caleb also rushed forward, putting on his trademark sunny, sincere face. Officer, I'm an adopted son of the homeowner. These are all my friends. We just had a little conflict. I didn't expect my brother to... He looked at me with helpless tolerance, as if I were an ignorant child. He calls the police whenever he gets mad. Sorry to trouble you. We'll leave right now. The lead officer remained expressionless, his sharp gaze sweeping over the messy living room, scattered beer bottles, the dropped knife, the brass knuckles Roxy had half hidden, and the hostile group finally landing on me. Mr. Thorne, you tell us. What's the situation? Ignoring Roxy's murderous glare and the hidden warning in Caleb's eyes, I pointed at green hair and the knife on the floor. Officer, except for Caleb Rivers, whom my family sponsors, I don't know a single one of them. They illegally broke into my home, threatened me with weapons, and that man just tried to attack me. Images of the forced future, me busy in the kitchen while Roxy brought a bunch of hooligans home, banging on the table yelling, "Dinner in 30 minutes," flashed through my mind. A strong sense of humiliation and anger rushed to my head. My voice trembled with aftershock. They just really wanted to attack. If you hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The officer's face darkened. He shielded me more closely, his stern gaze sweeping over Roxy and the others. Armed threats? Home invasion? The evidence is solid. Take them all away. Caleb panicked completely, his voice breaking. Julian, I really didn't know you looked down on my friends like this. I'll take them away right now. I'll never be an eyesore to you again. He turned to Roxy and the thugs, bowing deeply. Roxy, guys, I'm sorry. I got you involved. Roxy yanked him up to protect him, pointing at my nose and cursing fiercely. Julian Thorne, Caleb brought us here because he treats you like a brother. You ungrateful, malicious piece of trash. Fine. You look down on me? From now on, we go our separate ways. She waved her arm. Let's go. Stop. Who said you could go? The officer shouted, hand on his holster. Seeing the police wouldn't let them go, Roxy stared at me, her eyes like poisoned daggers. Julian Thorne, you really want to take it this far? Believe it or not, when I get out, I'll kill you. I immediately pointed at her and said to the officer, Officer, you saw that. She dares to threaten me like that right in front of you. This person is extremely dangerous. If she doesn't accept legal sanctions, she will definitely be a major threat to society. The officer nodded, his tone decisive. Don't worry. The law will be strictly enforced. Caleb tried to intervene again. Officer, they're my friends. They are good people. You can't. I interrupted coldly. Officer, given that he brought unidentified personnel to break into a private residence and caused a serious conflict, we previously gave him the door code. It seems this is a major security risk. I will change the code immediately. At the same time, I request that he be investigated for joint liability as the one who introduced them. The officer nodded in agreement. Reasonable request. Take him away for investigation too. The hashtag Thorne Air Bullies Other Sins Young Person of the Year to Jail skyrocketed to the top of the trending list. The accompanying picture was inflammatory. It showed me standing behind the police, pointing forward, my expression blurred. But Caleb, whom I was pointing at, had messy hair, a pale face, and a few perfectly placed bruises on the corners of his mouth and cheekbones. The living image of a poor noble son oppressed by the rich and powerful. The content of the articles was even more biased, employing subtle rhetoric to imply that I held a grudge against Caleb for losing the election and used my family's power to frame him in retaliation, sending him to the police station. The articles were filled with vague sources like, according to insiders and sources reveal, downplaying the fact that Roxy and the others committed armed home invasion and threatened physical harm, reducing it to a minor friction between friends. The comment section was overrun by bots and uninformed netizens. Disgusting. Julian Thorne is trash who does whatever he wants just because his family has money. Caleb still calls him his best brother. Tooey. No wonder his fiancée Serena Vance looks down on him. I used to think Serena was blind, but now I know she saw through Julian's scumbag nature long ago. Serena and Caleb are the perfect match. Poor noble son, rich family daughter. The Karina ship is locked. Support Caleb defending his rights. Don't let kind people's hearts go cold. My phone was blowing up. Countless unknown numbers sent vicious, cursing texts. Serena's call came through too. Julian, what kind of fit are you throwing now? How did Caleb offend you? The cold interrogation smashed into my face, as if she were the one who had been wronged. I was her nominal fiancé, yet she called me by my full name while referring to Caleb intimately. In the past, this cold tone might have made me sad or self-doubting. But after awakening to that wretched plot, my last filter for her shattered into dust. I felt nothing. You need something? My voice was flat. She seemed to think my attitude was softening. Her tone softened a few degrees, carrying a charitable tolerance. Stop making a scene. I know how you feel about me, but feelings can't be forced. I can treat you like a younger brother. Beep, beep, beep. Her only response was the dial tone. I hung up directly and turned off the phone. I shut out her hypocritical care completely. Not long after, Caleb and Serena drove to the Thorn Villa. I had just changed the passcode, so they were blocked outside the courtyard gate, frantically ringing the bell. I couldn't be bothered to open the door, so on the screen, Serena's usually exquisite, cold face was covered in frost, her eyes sharp as ice picks. Julian opened the door. Her commanding tone was the same as always. My hanging up on her had obviously enraged her. After all, for the past 10 years, I had been her most loyal lapdog, humble to the dust. My obsession with Serena had been inexplicable. She was an illegitimate daughter who had been lost and returned to the Vance family. She didn't fit in and was stubborn, suffering a lot. Her unyielding, wild eyes had fascinated me for years. Thinking back now, I was incredibly stupid. She was cold to me, but loved Caleb. That's infidelity. She was mediocre and marginalized in the Vance family. That's mediocrity. Failing to handle the old foxes of the Vance family after so many years. That's poor emotional intelligence. Like Roxy, aside from a face and so-called stubbornness, she had no redeeming qualities. How was I so blind? Seeing I wouldn't open the door, Serena's eyes grew colder. Fine, call the police station immediately and drop the case. Roxy and the others can't have a criminal record. Caleb stood behind her, his face still pale. His sunny, handsome face held anxiety and helplessness, like a boy who had made a mistake. Julian, I'm begging you. If you don't drop the case, Roxy and the others will have a record. She's my most important family. His urgency sounded genuine, as if Roxy were truly his blood relative. I sneered internally. Most important? So other people's records don't matter. The one pulling the knife yesterday wasn't Roxy herself. Is Serena a cuckold fetishist or the reincarnation of a saint? Going to bat for Caleb's most important family without a qualm. But I just asked calmly, the trending topic this morning, did you buy it? My gaze pierced through the screen, locking onto Caleb. Caleb's eyes flickered, as if stung by a bright light, and he subconsciously turned his head slightly, avoiding my direct stare. Serena immediately stepped forward, half blocking Caleb, and scolded me sternly. Julian, have you caused enough trouble? If you keep making unreasonable scenes, you'll only push me further away. You don't want us to stop being friends, do you? She once again used our relationship as a bargaining chip. I almost laughed out loud. Friends? Ms. Vance? My voice carried undisguised mockery. The Thorn family threshold is high. Not just any stray cat or dog can claim friendship. These words were like a slap in the face to both of them, especially poking at Serena's status as an illegitimate daughter. Stung, Serena's face turned iron blue instantly, anger rising in her eyes. Julian, you're out of line. Caleb timely revealed a painful, struggling expression, stepping in front of Serena. His voice was raspy and exhausted. Serena, stop fighting. It's all my fault. I made you turn against each other. He took a deep breath, as if making a huge resolution, and looked at me on the screen. His eyes held a hypocritical, self-sacrificing resolve. Julian, I'll yield Serena to you, as long as you calm down and let Roxy and the others out. We three can be like before, okay? He emphasized the word yield clearly, as if Serena were an object that could be transferred at will. Serena grabbed his arm in distress. Caleb, what nonsense are you talking about? Are feelings something to be passed around? The look she gave Caleb was full of heartache and pity. When she turned to me, only coldness remained. Caleb's jaw tightened, his eyes red. His acting was masterful, but I don't want to see anyone else get hurt because of me. If Roxy and the others have their futures ruined, I'll never forgive myself. He looked at Serena with pleading eyes, perfectly portraying a tragic figure willing to sacrifice love for friendship. Serena was heartbroken. She turned to the camera, her gaze cold as a knife, seemingly piercing the screen. Julian, listen to me. Drop the case immediately. Otherwise, I unilaterally announce the dissolution of our engagement. She finally played her last card, with a sense of charity like, this is your last chance. Threatening me with breaking off the engagement? I've been wishing for it. I leaned into the screen and shouted 2 words clearly, every syllable carrying the determination to sever the past. Deal. Done. After shouting those words, my whole body felt lighter, as if I had broken invisible chains that had bound me for years. Even breathing felt easier. Tool? Supporting male character? I am the sole heir to the Thorne family. Born in the clouds, why should I be a stepping stone for someone else's life? I turn off the screen, ignoring the colorful expressions on the faces of the two outside, and dial my parents. My parents were a business marriage. There was no fiery romance, but 20 years of fighting side by side had created a deep camaraderie. They were each other's most trusted partners and the steadiest helmsmen of the Thorne Corporation. Their raising of me was like polishing an heirloom, requiring me to be the perfect heir. Etiquette, knowledge, ability, character, everything was strict, but they never mistreated me. I had the best of everything. When I was little and heard other kids ate mom's cooking, I pestered my mom. My mom, the Iron Lady of the Thorne Group, actually put on an apron and clumsily, but seriously learned to cook. When she served the food, she hid her fingers covered in Band-Aids, smiling and saying that watching me eat happily was her greatest achievement. The only time I disobeyed them was for Serena. I insisted on marrying her. Serena's illegitimate status was a thorn in the side of the current Vance matriarch. My insistence was undoubtedly a slap in the matriarch's face. But my dad eventually nodded, even secretly mobilizing resources to support Serena, hoping she could gain a foothold. He said, "A Thorne daughter-in-law cannot be a joke." This was the greatest compromise he could give. Thinking of Caleb's hypocritical line in the plot, "You finally found your own happiness," I just felt the irony. My happiness had always been right beside me. My mom was a decisive businesswoman who was willing to cook for me. My dad valued rules and propriety above all else, but broke them for my marriage. In the plot, how disappointed must they have been when I broke with the family for that punk girl Roxy? The call connected. I spoke concisely. "Dad, Mom, I want to break off the engagement with Serena." Silence on the other end for a second, then my dad's steady voice came through. "Understood." No questions asked, but I could hear his relief, even a hint of undetectable gratification. My mom's voice carried a warm tone. "It's good you thought it through. Our Julian has grown up." That voice held the lightness of a burden lifted. The family had a rare, warm dinner. After the meal, my mom brought up the trending topic. In their impression, Caleb had always been a sensible, ambitious, and grateful kid. "Did you and Caleb have a conflict?" Mom asked tactfully. Her eyes held concern, but mostly trust in her son's judgment. I didn't play the saint anymore. I told them everything. About Serena shifting her affections to Caleb, and Caleb introducing a punk like Roxy to me as compensation. My tone was calm, but the facts revealed were chilling enough. Afraid they might hesitate due to years of sentiment, I also pulled up the surveillance footage of Serena and Caleb outside the gate that afternoon. In the footage, Caleb leaned close to Serena like a brother seeking protection. Serena acted like a sister protecting her cub, chin slightly raised, eyes cold and arrogant. The two stood shoulder to shoulder, united against the camera, against me. That intimacy and tacit understanding stung my parents, who had once given their genuine support. The warmth vanished from my mother's face, replaced by shock and heartbreak. That boy Caleb, how'd he turn out like this? So confused, simply utterly foolish. She clearly saw through the essence of Caleb's charade. My father's face was ironclad. He picked up his phone without a word, fingers tapping rapidly to send a few messages. Minutes later, he set the phone down, his voice cold and hard as steel. Regarding Serena, all resource support from the Thorne family ceases immediately. Not a single penny more. News of my broken engagement with Serena and split with Caleb spread. The online condemnation intensified. In their eyes, Serena breaking off the engagement confirmed my crimes. I took revenge on Caleb for losing the election, and Serena, unable to stand it, righteously broke it off. The few voices questioning that the Thorne family initiated the breakup were interpreted as the Thorne family knowing they were in the wrong, or simply preferring Caleb, making the breakup a way to facilitate Serena and Caleb being together. Toby Miller, as Caleb's #1 diehard fan, rushed to the front lines to wave the flag. As a roommate to both Caleb and me, his words carried weight and attracted a lot of attention. Toby posted a long essay on social media, crying tears of blood, claiming that when his mother was critically ill and needed surgery fees, he knelt to beg me for help, but I ruthlessly refused and pointed at his nose, cursing, "Broke loser, get far away, don't dirty my place." It was Caleb who appeared like a light, not only paying all the fees, but also giving extra nutrition money. Caleb is my whole family's savior. I finally understood where Toby's monstrous hatred for me came from. Years ago, Toby did ask me for a loan. I didn't agree on the spot. Instead, I asked him to provide detailed hospital bills and medical records for verification. This wasn't to be difficult, but the standard procedure for the Thorne family handling such matters. When I got the documents and prepared to transfer the money, Caleb told me not to worry about it, that he had handled it. I thought he was just being kind and even told him to come to me if the money wasn't enough. Now it seems he not only handled the money, but also handled my character, conveniently capping me with a cold-blooded and heartless hat. My childhood friend Bryce Sterling was fuming at the online comments. He went straight to confront Toby, telling him Caleb was just a scholarship student funded by my family. Where did he get the money? That was all Thorne family money. Toby didn't believe it at all and retorted, Bryce, I know you're close with Julian, but get your story straight first, okay? Caleb is a scholarship student? Do you think we're blind? Look at his daily spending. Look at how many people he's helped. Bryce stormed into my house, eyes red, veins popping on his forehead, looking ready to grab a knife and chop someone. I poured him a glass of ice water. He slammed the glass on the table, water splashing everywhere. Julian, people are shitting on your neck. If you keep being a coward hiding in your shell, I'm cutting ties with you right now. His chest heaved violently. That look meant he really wanted to go out and fight someone to the death. My heart warmed. Bryce Sterling genuinely treated me as a brother. In the plot, Bryce ended up worse than me, a standard villainous side character. He and Caleb weren't love rivals. They just didn't vibe. In that wretched group pet novel, Caleb's protagonist Halo failed only in front of Bryce. Bryce felt Caleb was fake and pretentious, tripping him up everywhere, and ended up becoming a stepping stone on Caleb and Serena's road to love. In the end, Caleb, the new noble of the city, moved against the Sterling family. The Sterling family fell, Bryce's parents died of depression, and Bryce was forced to flee overseas, living a destitute life. Julian, wake the hell up. Caleb is an ungrateful wolf. He looks human, but his heart is blacker than anyone's. He uses your family's money to play the good guy, then tries to stomp you to death. You're just going to take it. Bryce was still roaring. No, I interrupted him calmly, my eyes sharp as an unsheathed blade. This time, we destroy him together. Bryce choked, as if someone grabbed his neck. Wait, what did you say? Destroy him? Holy SHD. Julian, did the water in your brain finally drain out? His anger was instantly replaced by huge surprise and disbelief. I patted his shoulder firmly. I was stupid before, let him fool me, and dragged you into it. From now on, what's mine stays mine. No one touches it. My tone was calm, but carried undeniable power. Taking down Caleb wasn't hard. Throwing out the funding proof would do. But to completely hammer him into the ground was difficult. Caleb's saint, Halo, was too bright. People wanted to believe he was the embodiment of truth, goodness, and beauty. He had been placed on an altar. Even if I said I paid the money, those blinded by the halo would whitewash his actions for him. He didn't spend the money on himself. He did good deeds. Isn't that selfless enough? Judge the act, not the heart. His heart to do good is real. Setting aside the facts, one who holds firewood for the masses should not be left to freeze in the wind. He comes from a poor background but has great love, which makes it even more precious. So, I needed an opportunity, a chance to make him fall hard from the altar to shatter his bones so he could never turn things around. Fate, or that wretched plot, delivered the opportunity quickly. Toby collapsed, a genetic disease, same as his mother. He needed a liver transplant. The roommate of the Young Person of the Year needed a liver transplant. The school invited a TV station to do a special report, wanting to use Caleb's Great Philanthropist title to generate publicity, aiming for the annual Heart of the Campus award to gild the school's reputation. When the cameras and microphones were shoved in Caleb's face, the host asked with emotion and expectation, Caleb, as Toby's best brother and a role model in our hearts, what do you want to say to him right now? We believe you will do your utmost to help him through this difficulty, just as you help others. While everyone waited for him to perform the grand finale of generosity, he froze. Because I had canceled his supplementary card, completely deactivated. After classmates symbolically donated small amounts, everyone's eyes focused eagerly and worshipfully on Caleb. It was time for the main event. Toby's surgery fees and subsequent rehabilitation costs were destined to be shouldered by this great philanthropist. Riding a tiger he couldn't get off, Caleb had to brace himself and pull out the supplementary card I gave him, his movements carrying a barely detectable stiffness. The finance teacher in charge of receiving donations operated the machine for a moment, then looked confused and awkward. Caleb, this card. Shows us frozen, unable to process. Should we try another one? Caleb's face turned red instantly, fine cold sweat seeping from his forehead. A classmate nearby thought he took the wrong card and laughed to smooth things over. Caleb's family is big business. Lots of cards is normal. Just swap it. Caleb looked at me pleadingly, his eyes full of panic and begging. He squeezed next to me, lowering his voice to a desperate whisper. Julian, help me. Just this once. Otherwise, I'm finished. I gave him a standard, polite, cold smile, laced with a hint of mockery. You're dreaming. Caleb's face went from red to white, then white to green. For the first time, his eyes clearly and undisguisedly flashed with resentment and hate, like a poison needle, even if only for a second. The saint in the sun finally showed his fangs. He took a deep breath, turned to the camera and the countless expectant gazes, and bowed deeply. He bent very low, almost 90 degrees, his posture humble and heavy. I'm sorry. His voice carried heavy guilt and raspiness. I don't have any money left. This sentence exploded like a bomb in the silent venue. He straightened up, eyes red, fighting to keep tears from falling, his gaze sincere and pained. I want to help everyone in trouble more than anyone. But my ability is limited. Recently, due to some misunderstandings, several very important friends were imprisoned. To make it up to them, and to seek peace of mind, I gave almost everything. Now I really can't take out any more. His voice choked, thick with self-blame and powerlessness. I disappointed everyone truly. Very, very sorry. He bowed again, staying down for a long time. The scene was in an uproar. The students around looked at me, with eyes spitting fire. If not for the cameras, they might have pounced. Misunderstanding. Implicated. Gave everything. Every word was precisely pointing at me. Bryce crossed his arms and scoffed, loudly enough for the microphone to pick up. Caleb, if you're broke, why pretend to be a big shot? Did you spend all your money buying bots to slander Julian? He pulled out his phone and shoved it directly in front of the near's camera lens. The screen showed the official police blue and white notice, clearly stating that Roxy and the others were detained for 15 days for armed illegal entry into a residence and threatening personal safety. Caleb's body swayed violently, his face pale as paper. I added the fatal blow, my voice calm but penetrating. Those accounts spreading rumors have been banned. Is Mr. Rivers publicly insinuating that the police handling was unfair and questioning the justice of the law? Do you want to go in and stamp license plates with them? Directly capping him with the hat of contempt of law. I didn't. Caleb hurriedly defended himself, his voice panicked and cracking. I just believe my friends are innocent. They were just too impulsive. A tall boy in a wash-faded tracksuit suddenly stood in front of Caleb, shielding him like a wall. He glared at me, his voice agitated and angry. Julian Thorne, you and Caleb are cousins. How is the gap so big? Being so aggressive, doesn't your conscience hurt? His name was Kevin O'Malley, from a poor background, who only paid tuition thanks to Caleb's sponsorship. He was Caleb's most fanatical believer. No. I remained expressionless, looking past him directly at Caleb, because I have no blood relation to him. He is just a scholarship student funded by my family. This sentence was like a thunderclap. Kevin looked like he heard the biggest joke in the world, his face full of disdain. To slander Caleb, you really dare to make up anything. Caleb is a scholarship student? Look at his daily spending. Look at how many people he helps. Do you take us all for fools? Ding! Almost simultaneously, everyone's phone in the venue emitted a new email notification sound, rising and falling into a strange symphony. An 87-page PDF file was anonymously mass emailed to everyone present, including the work emails of all media reporters. The file title was stinging and clear: Caleb Rivers. How a scholarship student funded by the Thorne family became Young Person of the Year. It had pictures and truth, detailing the entire process of my family sponsoring Caleb. First meeting. The photo was in front of a dilapidated shack in a poor county in the Southwest. 10-year-old Caleb was skinny as a monkey, wearing ill-fitting worn clothes, eyes timid. When we went, his parents were planning to make him drop out to work. The Thorne family extended a hand. Attached was a scan of the Thorne Charity Fund agreement from that year. Middle school romance and kneeling. He dated early in middle school, grades plummeted, and he didn't get into the top high school. The photo of him kneeling in the rain all night outside my villa, surveillance screenshot, was shocking. His pleading text record. Uncle Arthur, Auntie Eleanor, please help me one more time. My family wants to force me to go down south to work in a factory. If you don't help me, my life is ruined. You don't want your investment in me all these years to go down the drain, right? Nakid moral blackmal. Moving into the Thorn house, my mom was soft-hearted. Not only did she solve his enrollment, but she also let him live in the Thorn house, eating and spending just like me. To protect his pitiful pride, we only told outsiders he was a child of a distant relative. Attached were photos of him living in the Thorn house, framed with me, dressed well, looking nothing like the boy kneeling in the rain. Transfer records and charity details. At the end of the file were attached the large transfer records over the years. Recipient, Caleb Rivers. The accumulated amount was millions. And screenshots of some details of Caleb using that money for charity. Receipts for paying tuition for poor students. Payer signature is Caleb. Receipts for compensating delivery drivers, handler Caleb. Reports of donating supplies to orphanages, signed, philanthropist Caleb. The evidence was an iron mountain. The scene was dead silent. Only the camera shutters clicked frantically, recording this explosive scene. So, what Bryce said was true. The Thorn family sponsored Caleb for so many years. Julian doesn't seem as bad as the internet says. Those marketing accounts deserve to die. They used us as guns. Whispers spread like a tide. Caleb froze in place, struck by lightning, blood drained from his face, lips trembling, eyes empty and desperate. This time, the resentment in his eyes could no longer be hidden, shooting toward me like a physical substance. He stared dead at me, his voice squeezed through his teeth, carrying bone-deep chill. Julian, why are you doing this to me? Do you have to drive me to extinction? The onlookers recovered from the shock. Seeing Caleb's pale, fragile, teetering appearance, their sympathy began to overflow again. Caleb's background is so tragic. He didn't want this. He walked in the rain, so he wanted to hold an umbrella for others. Even if the money wasn't his. Even if he used Thorn money, he did help a lot of people. Exactly, Caleb's kindness comes from the heart. Money is just a tool. Bryce was so angry his fists cracked. He wanted to rush up and punch Caleb's hypocritical face, but I held him back. Bryce, don't be impulsive. Acting now would only swing public opinion back to him. Sure enough, seeing me stop Bryce, a fleeting look of disappointment and malice crossed Caleb's eyes. Kevin, although pale, still craned his neck and jumped out again, voice trembling with agitation. So what if it's Thorn money? Your family has money they can't finish spending. Should it rot in a warehouse? Caleb taking a little out to help others is accumulating virtue for your Thorn family. Why do you have to blame him? Does doing good deeds depend on whose money it is? Familiar Raver logic. I couldn't help but smile, a cold smile that saw through everything. I intended to hide my merit and fame. After all, the Thorn family never seeks fame for helping others. But I cannot tolerate someone claiming my parents' kindness as their own, biting the hand that feeds them, and stepping on the Thorn family's bones to achieve his hypocritical sainthood. I turned my gaze to Caleb, carrying utter mockery and pity. Caleb, human life is at stake. Toby is in critical condition. You surely agree that in the face of life, everything else is secondary, right? Named by me, Caleb had to take a stand. He squeezed out a compassionate expression, unable to hide the panic in his eyes. Of course, life is above all else. I hope more than anyone that Toby can recover. Unfortunately, I really don't have the ability. He sighed heavily, appearing incredibly regretful and self-blaming. I didn't give him the chance to continue performing. I interrupted directly, my smile deepening. Who says there's no chance? Caleb's heart skipped a beat, a strong premonition of doom seizing him. My tone was gentle, like an elder brother truly thinking of him. I know you've always wanted to shed the label of relying on the Thorn family. To prove your kindness comes from the heart and has nothing to do with money. Now, the chance has come. I paused, my gaze sweeping the room, pronouncing every word clearly so it smashed into everyone's heart. The money isn't yours, but your liver is. This live stream made Caleb's name resound across the country again. Only this time, the center of the storm was doubt, ridicule, and a good deed waiting to be verified. The footage of Caleb being crowded into the hospital for matching like a tragic hero pushed this farce to a climax. The camera captured his face, forcing calm, and his slightly trembling hands. News of Young Person of the Year willing to donate liver to save roommate carpeted the media. Countless people called for him to be nominated for Person Who Moved America. The school website eagerly put up a huge poster of Caleb. The publicity department was jubilant, as if they had already booked the annual award. However, Caleb, at the center of the storm, was on pins and needles, unable to eat or sleep. Because the match results came back. Damn it, it was a match. He panicked completely and immediately asked Serena for help. He couldn't donate. He couldn't lose a piece of his liver. It would affect his health, his future. He had climbed so hard to get here. Serena naturally agreed to everything, using the remaining influence of the Vance family to contact connections at the hospital, preparing to forge a fake report of a failed match. She naively thought this could help Caleb save his reputation and weather the storm. After getting the fake report with the ink barely dry, Caleb participated in a flagship program famous for deep interviews. The show obviously wanted to seize this explosive point. Under the spotlight, Caleb wore a well-ironed suit, trying to maintain a haggard but resolute expression. When the host asked about the progress of the donation with a solemn and respectful tone, Caleb showed just the right amount of grief and huge regret. He pushed the carefully forged fake report toward the camera, his voice heavy and full of self-blame. "I really want to save Toby. He isn't just my roommate. He's my brother from another mother. Before his mother's surgery, she held our hands, hoping we would watch out for each other. That request still rings in my ears." He emotionally recounted the brotherhood, skillfully cueing up his past good deeds and spirit of selfless dedication again. He paused, tears welling in his eyes, waiting for the host and audience's comfort and regret. The script should have been, everyone is moved by his misfortune and regret, sympathizing even more with this involuntary good person. However, the scene was eerily quiet. The host looked at him, her expression becoming a bit strange. She picked up a file that had just been urgently delivered by a staff member, still warm from the fax machine. To the camera, and to Caleb, her voice was clear and calm. "Mr. Rivers, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just received an original matching report faxed directly from the liver transplant center of XX Tertiary Hospital. The results show." She paused deliberately, looking sharply at Caleb. "The liver match between you and Toby Miller is successful. The match degree is very high, extremely suitable for transplantation." The tragedy on Caleb's face froze instantly. His body swayed violently as if hit by an invisible hammer, and he cried out, "What? Impossible." The voice was sharp and distorted due to extreme shock and panic. He thought Serena had already handled the hospital, that it was foolproof. The host ignored his loss of composure and continued to twist the knife, her tone laden with meaning. "However, we simultaneously received a real-name whistleblower report identifying hospital staff suspected of forging medical reports, altering successful match results to failed ones." She held up the fake report Caleb had just presented. "And the one in your hand is exactly that altered fake report. Mr. Rivers, do you have any explanation for this?" This was almost explicitly accusing Caleb of fishing for fame, possibly even participating in fraud. In the face of massive traffic and explosive news points, Caleb's little halo was fragile. The host's questions were like sharp knives, peeling away his hypocritical skin. Caleb's face was as pale as paper, beads of cold sweat on his forehead. His lips trembled, eyes darting around in panic, forcing calm. I know nothing about this. Maybe a friend who cares about me, in a moment of urgency, did a foolish thing. I absolutely didn't participate. I hope Toby gets better more than anyone." He tried to push the blame onto a non-existent friend. The host pressed step by step, giving him no chance to breathe or argue. "So, personally, Mr. Rivers, you are very willing and ready to donate your liver at any time, correct?" She emphasized willing and ready. Riding a tiger he couldn't get off, looking at the countless lenses pointed at him, looking at the host's knowing gaze, looking at the audience's eyes turning suspicious and angry, Caleb felt his throat block up. Huge fear and despair drowned him. Finally, he could only squeeze out 2 words through his teeth, his voice dry as sandpaper rubbing together. "Yes." The host immediately turned to the camera, her face instantly switching to moved and excited, her tone carrying undeniable incitement. "The deep brotherhood between Caleb and Toby is moving. Young Person of the Year, truly deserving of the name. We have urgently coordinated with the hospital. The surgery can be arranged immediately. Now let's follow the camera and witness this relay of life. Witness this brotherhood that transcends blood." The director immediately cut the feed to the hospital's prepared surgical corridor. Caleb looked as if his spine had been removed. He collapsed in a daze, surrounded by staff and medical personnel who were prepared long ago, pushed like a marionette toward the cold operating room doors. The camera followed closely, recording every bit of his stiffness and fear. Wade changed into the blue and white striped hospital gown and was pushed toward the door, symbolizing the unknown and cutting. The massive terror finally crushed him. The smell of disinfectant, the cold gurney, the gleaming surgical instruments. All of it became the last straw that broke the camel's back. Looking at the slowly opening doors, Caleb could no longer maintain his image. He sprang up from the gurney, hysterically breaking free from the nurse's hands, screaming at the camera and everyone, his voice twisted by extreme fear. "No, I won't donate. Let me go. I don't want surgery. I don't want my liver cut. Help me." He struggled like a madman, snot and tears flowing. Where was any trace of the young person of the year? This live stream became a disastrous farce. While ratings exploded, Caleb's persona completely collapsed. Caleb's terrified, backpedaling expression was made into various memes and remix videos, spreading virally. "I won't donate" became the meme of the year. A deep dive post titled "The Hypocrite Revealed." The two faces of Caleb Rivers swept the internet. The post not only hammered the facts of Caleb's scholarship identity and stolen funding, but also completely reversed the previous Black trending topic hashtag Thornair bullies others sends Caleb to jail. The truth was that after Caleb stole Julian's fiancée, he actually introduced a street punk to Julian as compensation. After rejection, the punk threatened with a knife and was sent to the police station in self-defense. Caleb bought trending topics afterward to victim blame and slander the victim. The post attached the police's blue notice and parts of the villa conflict surveillance footage, obtained after Julian called the police, as ironclad evidence, and even dug up screenshots of Caleb bragging about his persona management on forums years ago using an alt account. Public opinion exploded completely. Holy SHD, reality version of The Farmer and the Snake. This is an ungrateful wolf that can't be fed. Joke of the year, philanthropist Caleb apologized to Julian. "We scolded too loudly before. Julian is actually miserable, cucked, betrayed by a brother, threatened with a knife, cyberbullied. What kind of hell is this? Caleb, get out of NYC. Serena is blind and heartblind. Deserved." Brands endorsed by Caleb issued termination statements one after another, wording them harshly. The school took down his huge posters overnight. The top investment bank that promised him a job upon graduation also sent a cold termination letter, stating, "Due to personal integrity issues, all hiring intent is terminated." Caleb's world collapsed completely. He hid in a cheap rented apartment, drew the curtains tight, looked at the overwhelming abuse online, and smashed everything he could reach. He didn't understand why, overnight, he fell from the clouds into the mud. He just didn't want a piece of his liver cut out. He did so many good things. Couldn't he be forgiven just once? The huge gap and resentment with nowhere to vent almost drove him crazy. Just when I thought the dust had settled and was preparing to go abroad to start a new life, a package covered in dark red paint and emitting a strong stench of rot was delivered to my villa. The bodyguard opened it cautiously. Inside was a dead rat, disemboweled with internal organs exposed, its eyes cruelly gouged out, staring emptily. Inside the package was a printed note with crooked writing. "You're next." The police intervened quickly, notifying me that Roxy and the others' detention period was up, warning me to be safe. They might hold a grudge. Their desire for revenge is strong. A few days later, on my way to the company alone, I specifically chose a relatively quiet shortcut. At a corner of an alley, a figure in a black hoodie, mask, and cap suddenly darted out from the shadows, holding a dark glass bottle with an open mouth, splashing it straight at my driver's side window. The pungent smell of acid filled the air instantly. Hiss! The moment the liquid splashed on the window, the bulletproof glass made a slight corroding sound, but blocked it firmly. At the same time, the door of a black SUV that had been following not far behind me flew open. Two agile figures pounced like leopards. One moved as fast as lightning, taking off a special fireproof and anti-corrosive jacket and flinging it like a matador's cape in midair, accurately blocking most of the liquid splashing toward the car body's gaps. The other delivered a fierce, sliding tackle, kicking precisely into the attacker's knee. "Ah!" The attacker screamed, falling heavily to the ground. The bottle flew out of their hand, the remaining liquid splashing on the ground, emitting pungent white smoke and foam, instantly corroding the road surface. Strong acid. The bodyguard who subdued the attacker pinned their hands behind their back, knee pressed firmly against their spine, and ripped off the mask and hat. It was Roxy. She had dyed her hair back to black, but the madness and resentment in her eyes hadn't diminished a bit. Like a venomous snake pinned by the neck, even while pressed firmly to the ground, she still roared hoarsely, "Julian Thorne, you dare do this to Caleb. I'll kill you." I pushed open the car door and walked over slowly, looking down at her face twisted by anger and pain. My Doc Martens crunched clearly on the rough pavement. I squatted down, eyes cold as glacial ice. Skin me alive? I smiled, a smile without a trace of warmth. Without warning, I lifted my foot abruptly. The heavy sole of the boot, carrying accumulated anger and the humiliation of past and present lives, kicked viciously into her face. Crack! The sound of bone cracking set teeth on edge. Roxy's nose bridge collapsed visibly, blood spraying instantly, covering half her face. The agony made her curl up, gasping hoarsely, unable to curse another word, only whimpering in pain. I rolled my ankle and said to the bodyguard, "Call the police. Armed assault plus attempted murder." Also, I looked coldly at the twitching Roxy on the ground, package up all the good deeds she and her brothers did before, and send them to the police. Especially, I paused, voice laced with ice. The case 3 years ago at the West Side warehouse. The college student named Daniel Park who was beaten into a vegetative state. Tell the police the victim's parents are still waiting for justice. The bodyguard nodded, dialing briskly. Understood, Mr. Thorne. New debts and old. Time to settle them all. Roxy wasn't getting out easily this time. Not just for attempted acid attacks. The top private investigator I hired was incredibly efficient, digging up the long list of crimes committed by Roxy and her gang. Carrying knives was basic. Fighting and extortion were daily meals, and they were extremely vicious, with a long record. The worst was the West Side warehouse case 3 years ago. They targeted a college student named Daniel Park, who came from a decent family and had just won a scholarship, wanting to extort a large sum. The guy had trained in kickboxing and was good, actually knocking their group down. Roxy turned anger into shame. While Daniel wasn't looking, she stabbed him 3 times in the back with a dagger, each blow fatal. Although Daniel was resuscitated, he became a vegetable, still awake to this day. A college student with a bright future had his life destroyed. At that time, under Caleb's desperate begging, Serena used the Vance family connections, spending a fortune to silence people and alter the chain of evidence, forcibly suppressing the matter and labeling it hooligan fighting, mutual fault. The victims' parents were just working class. With no way to appeal, they could only wash their faces with tears, guarding their unconscious son through difficult days. Now this matter fell into my hands. The evidence was ironclad. With the parents' tearful accusation plus Roxy's heavy felony this time, the crimes would be punished cumulatively. Without the Vance family's protection, Roxy would spend the rest of her life rehabilitating within prison walls. The sentence was long enough for her to retire there. The graduation gala was held at a top hotel. Scented clothes, shadows of guests, clinking glasses. I didn't want to come, but Bryce said Serena would attend with Caleb. The Vance family doesn't seem as if they've completely given up on her. They want to use this occasion to save face for Caleb. I somewhat admired Serena's loyalty. She herself was marginalized by the Vance family, yet she still didn't abandon the disgraced Caleb. To watch the show, I deigned to arrive. As soon as I appeared, familiar friends immediately surrounded me to exchange pleasantries, the atmosphere warm. Others' gazes covertly scanned between me and Serena and Caleb in the corner. Our dramatic story was no secret in this circle. Only now the winner was decided. Caleb saw me first. He wore a well-tailored suit, hairstyled, trying to maintain a last shred of dignity, but the despondence and haggardness in his eyes couldn't be hidden, and he had lost a lot of weight. He held a drink, as if gathering courage, and walked toward me. His steps carried a barely detectable unsteadiness. Julian, he squeezed out a smile, trying to retrieve past familiarity, as if the monstrous waves online never happened. Long time no see. People around pricked up their ears, waiting for a show. I took a step back, raising my hand in a halt gesture. The movement was elegant, but carried unquestionable distance. My voice wasn't loud, but enough for those nearby to hear clearly. Mr. Rivers, keep your distance. I'm afraid you'll accidentally fall later. Then cry to everyone Julian didn't push me. I fell myself. After all, you have a record. Someone couldn't hold back a laugh first, immediately drawing suppressed chuckles and whispers. Caleb's smile froze instantly, blood draining away, fingers holding the glass, turning white, knuckles green. He stared dead at me, the resentment in his eyes almost spilling over. After a long while, he pulled a hideously ugly sneer, voice pressed extremely low, carrying heavy hate. Not pretending anymore. He tried to regain some ground. I raised an eyebrow, eyes scornful. Pretending what? Pretending to be a saint like you? Or pretending to be a brother who can't even spare a liver? Caleb gritted his teeth, every word poisoned. Julian, what are you proud of? Besides being born well, what do you have? Serena will never give you a second look. You will always be a pitiful worm begging for what you can't have. I swirled the champagne in my hand, posture relaxed. Oh, and besides that pitiful sympathy from Serena, what do you have? A termination letter from a top investment bank? Or the hypocrite memes carpeting the internet? Seeing Serena's name didn't provoke me. Caleb's eyes turned sinister. I have Serena. That's enough. She will never abandon me. Serena noticed the commotion and walked over quickly, standing beside Caleb with a protective stance like a mother hen protecting her chick, glaring coldly at me, eyes like knives. Just as Caleb's expression started to change, I immediately took several exaggerated steps back, movements large, voice raised to ensure the whole room heard. Everyone bear witness. I am at least 5 meters away from this Mr. Rivers. Physical contact? Non-existent. I don't want to be trending tomorrow with the headline, Julian Thorne beats former brother at gala. Failing to protect her boy, Serena went pale with anger, shot me a vicious glare, and practically dragged the iron-faced Caleb toward their ignored corner. Serena was indeed here tonight to save face for Caleb, or rather, it was the last chance given to her by some in the Vance family. She went on stage to give a speech as an important guest of the gala. Under the spotlight, she tried to maintain the demeanor of a Vance daughter, announcing that in Caleb's name, she would donate a piece of prime land owned by the Vance Group in the new district for public welfare development, with all proceeds used to sponsor poor college students. The project name was Rivers Aspiration Scholarship Plan, implying Caleb came from humble beginnings but didn't forget to give back to society, highlighting his noble aspirations. The official words were grand. The location of this land was extremely superior, a core area of the new district development with huge potential. The starting bid was $80 million. As soon as the news came out, the eyes of many real estate representatives at the scene lit up. Bidding began, the atmosphere heated. Many real estate companies eyed this fat piece of meat. The bidding was fierce, price quickly soaring to $150 million. Every bid made a weak hope ignite in Caleb's eyes in the corner. When the price hit $180 million, I raised the paddle in my hand. $200 million. Voice flat. The whole room focused. Serena frowned on stage. Caleb nervously clenched his fists off stage. In the end, I won the land for $230 million. Caleb revealed a relieved smile, as if this money could wash away the stain on his name. The hostess handed the letter of intent to me. Flashbulbs aimed at my hand holding the pen. However, I didn't sign. Amidst the stunned gazes of the crowd, I walked onto the stage, steps unhurried. I took the microphone from the slightly pale Serena, smiling slightly at the audience and Serena on stage, yet the smile held no warmth. Thank you, Ms. Vance, for your generosity, adding bricks and tiles to the cause of public welfare. However, I changed the subject, gaze sweeping sharply over Serena's instantly stiff face. Before officially signing, based on the principle of prudence, my company requests to hire an authoritative third-party agency to re-evaluate the property rights ownership of this land and attached historical legacy issues and legal risks. This is a standard procedure for large transactions. I trust Ms. Vance understands. Serena's face changed abruptly, voice carrying a barely detectable tremor. Julian, what do you mean? This land is clean. What problems could there be? Caleb also jumped up, shouting with false bravado, Julian, don't go too far. Serena is doing charity. Are you questioning the Vance family's integrity? I couldn't be bothered with their bluster and signaled my assistant directly. The assistant opened a carried laptop, connecting to the venue's huge LED screen. Clear scan documents were projected, like ironclad evidence of judgment. Land mortgage contract clearly showed the plot was privately mortgaged by Serena's father, current Vance CEO, to XX Bank half a year ago. Loan amount $150 million, mortgage status not released. Court seizure notice. Due to a huge contract dispute involving the Vance Group, this plot had been legally seized by the XX court, prohibiting any form of transaction, transfer, or development. The bright red court seal was dazzling. Vance's internal high-level meeting minutes clearly recorded the land had major property right defects and legal risks, with Serena herself listed in attendance. The minutes clearly wrote, not suitable for disposal at this time. Evidence mountainous. The venue exploded instantly. Gasps and discussions rose and fell. Serena's face instantly went as pale as paper. Her body swayed, almost unstable. She pointed at the screen, fingers trembling violently. What did you get? This is forged. It must be forged. Her final struggle was pale and weak. Caleb was completely dumbfounded too, frozen stiff, the light of hope on his face extinguished completely, leaving only deathly gray despair. "Ms. Vance?" I looked at her, voice clearly spreading through the hall, carrying cold mockery. "Using a piece of distressed property with unclear rights, under seizure status, and suspected of fraud to package your little lover and do charity whitewashing? Do you take the business elite's present for fools, or do you think the Vance family face can withstand your trashing?" Mrs. Vance appeared amidst the chaos and uproar. She wore an exquisite suit, aura powerful, face stern, followed by several serious-looking police officers and economic crime investigators. Her appearance silenced the venue instantly. An officer showed his badge directly, voice booming. "Ms. Serena Vance, we received a report that you are suspected of embezzling Vance Group assets, forging documents, and contract fraud. The evidence is solid. Please come with us to assist in the investigation." Seeing Mrs. Vance, the last trace of color faded from Serena's face. Her lips trembled, like seeing a natural predator. Madam, Mrs. Vance didn't give her a single glance. Her gaze swept coldly over Caleb, who was slumped in his seat looking like death, and finally landed on me. She nodded slightly, eyes holding a trace of undetectable approval and gratitude. "Julian, thank you for speaking out for justice and stopping the loss in time. The parasites of the Vance family needed cleaning." Her voice wasn't loud, but carried unquestionable authority. I bowed slightly, posture respectful. "Eddie Vance, you're too kind. It was a small effort. Maintaining business integrity is a duty. My actions were rash, exposing this publicly. Please forgive me. I refer to tearing the face publicly, embarrassing the Vance family." Mrs. Vance waved her hand, tone decisive. "It's fine. Hesitation leads to disaster." Her gaze turned to Serena and Caleb being taken away by investigators, voice carrying utter indifference and disgust. "Take them away. The Vance family has no place for things that eat from the inside and damage the family reputation." The aftermath was simple and satisfying. Serena's embezzlement and forgery were proven, the amount huge. She faced over 10 years in prison. The Vance family announced a complete severance of ties with her. Caleb, as an accomplice and beneficiary, intending to use the Rivers plan to whitewash and profit, was also swept into the investigation. His Young Person of the Year halo became a complete irony. His reputation ruined, future destroyed. Although he wasn't prosecuted due to insufficient evidence, he was completely socially dead. That problem land was legally repossessed by the bank, having nothing to do with Serena's charity plan. I heard later that after Serena was jailed, Caleb, grasping at the last straw, tried to visit her, hoping she would remember old times and bail him out, or at least give him money to leave the city. But Serena screamed at him through the glass, calling him a bad luck charm and jinx, telling him to get as far away as possible. Later, Caleb completely disappeared into the sea of people in the city. Someone said they saw him at a construction site in a dusty small town in the south, skin dark and rough, back hunched, wearing dirty work clothes, carrying heavy cement, looking nothing like the sunny, handsome youth of the past. The Young Person of the Year, looked up to by countless people, finally lived the life he once wanted to escape most. Roxy faced cumulative punishment for multiple crimes, attempted acid murder, intentional injury causing severe harm/vegetative state, illegal possession of weapons, mob fighting, extortion, etc. The sentence was long enough for her to spend the rest of her life in prison. The parents of the Vegetative College student Daniel Park, upon learning the real culprit was caught, wept in each other's arms, finally waiting for a sliver of justice. Toby Miller later waited for a suitable liver source, and the surgery was successful. Someone sent me the GoFundMe link. I glanced at the target of millions for follow-up rehab and anti-rejection costs, and the sparse donation progress, then calmly closed it. I am not a saint. Repaying malice with virtue. Then how do you repay virtue? My kindness and resources have their boundaries. Bryce Sterling successfully took over the family business, his methods swift and decisive. He thoroughly disciplined the few lackeys who had jumped around with Caleb kicking us when we were down. The Sterling family's position in the city became more solid. He occasionally complained to me, "Julian, without you here, face slapping isn't satisfying enough." I successfully received an offer from the MIT Sloan School of Management. On the day the plane soared into the clouds, the sky over the city was exceptionally blue, clear, as if washed. Outside the porthole, a sea of clouds churned, vast and boundless. Inside the cabin, it was quiet and comfortable. I closed the book in my hand and looked out the window, breaking free from the predetermined script, severing the sucking vines, leaving those hypocrites and parasites who tried to manipulate my fate forever in the mud behind me. Beneath my feet was the route to a brand new world. Overhead was the infinite sky. The life belonging to Julian Thorne truly set sail at this moment. Story complete.